is looking at the role that herbs can play, right? And so we don't just have to turn to herbs when something goes wrong. Herbs can be a really important part of preventative medicine. And herbs are for more than just savoring and enjoying them. Alhamdulillah, we can put them to work for our health. So when we work with herbs, it's kind of like when we're drinking teas and taking certain kinds of herbal preparations internally, we can kind of think of them as foods, right? And herbs have their own profiles, nutritional profiles, their own kinds of nutrients. There are, some have great sources of iron, some may be great sources of protein or amino acids or precursors for neurotransmitters. Um, and of course, there's this, additional kind of healing plant medicine that is less about the nutritional side of things. And just like with foods, there are some things that we know from what science has discovered, and there's plenty that we don't know about what is in herbs and their synergy when you mix them with other herbs and, you take them into your body for why they work and why they are effective. And herbs that might work for you might not work for someone else. And there's, lots of factors to why that could be the case. But in any case, we want to make sure that as a part of our toolkit for preventing and managing certain kinds of health issues that come up this season, that we're including our herbs daily in our routines, right? This is my hope for you, with the goal that this autumn you may be comparatively healthier than last autumn, inshallah ta'ala. So when we speak of herbs, we focus on what's called their properties or their actions, their medicinal actions. So it's like their effect. What are they doing in the body? And when we work with the different kinds of herbs, we're not just going by lists of plants. Like, I'm not going to give you just lists of plants because this is actually not so helpful, except in a few cases, right? There's a few plants that we know for sure there's there's benefit to them in one way, shape, or form. And of course, one of those plants is black seed, Allahu Akbar. But in general, from the standpoint of herbal medicine, you want to be thinking about the herbal action that you need, so the herbal effect that you need, and not so much this, I need this plant, I need that plant, I need this plant, because you might not be able to find certain plants. You might need to get alternatives or substitutions. And that's much easier to do when you know I'm looking for a plant that does this sort of action. Okay. So that's my quick kind of uh, little bit of advanced herbal training. Just because I do want you to really, come away from tonight with enough knowledge to make you just a little bit dangerous, inshallah. But it helps to really navigate your wellness journey, your herbal journey, much easier when you start to think about the actions of plants. Um, so for autumn, there are a few actions that I kind of build wellness regimens around. There's many more actions than what is on this page, and there's way more herbs than what's on here that do these different actions. But I just tried to kind of limit it to what was like most easiest for us to kind of consider. So the first action is called alternative, and alternatives is a category of basically plant medicine. And the clue to what it does is in the word. So alternatives alter the function of your cells. They alter or improve the condition of your blood, the condition of just certain organs. There are sort of general alternatives that you kind of think of as blood cleansers and all around kind of workhorses. Then there are alternatives that work on specific systems in your body. There are uterine alternatives. There are sort of brain alternatives. There are um, digestive alternatives, liver alternatives. Okay. Uh, Somebody was mentioning, them being, concerned and interested in ways that they could fortify their immune system. Well, one way to do that would be to bring in alternatives. Okay, because the way that our immune system works, it benefits greatly from the effects of alternative herbs in our body, right? So black seed, its potency, all of the different properties that it has, being antimicrobial, antiviral, and antibacterial. Um, these are kind of blood cleansing and immune boosting actions. So that's one example of an alternative. Echinacea would be another one. It's immune boosting. I didn't mention it here, but it certainly would deserve to be up here, alhamdulillah. Red clover is a very potent blood cleanser. And at least in the North American tradition, and I think in some parts of Europe, red clover is used traditionally, and even things like cancer, alhamdulillah. When I worked with a woman in Russia, we worked through a red clover formula for her, alhamdulillah. She was dealing with some tumors. And then burdock root is from well known in traditional Chinese medicine as being a really good blood cleanser, and it helps with joints, with joint issues. Other ones that I could have included up here that I didn't would be hibiscus. Hibiscus is a blood cleanser. Olive leaf would do well up here also. But these are just a few examples of blood cleansing herbs that will provide some support to strengthening your immunity if that's something that you're concerned about, inshallah, in autumn. The next category of herbal actions are cathartics. Cathartics are just another way of saying laxatives, right? And there's different kinds of laxatives. There's very strong laxatives and there's very weak laxatives. Senna is more on the strong side. Licorice is more on the gentle side. The jujube is more on the gentle side. Jujube is the fruit of cedar tree, alhamdulillah. Rhubarb is another one. Rhubarb is another one from Chinese medicine. Alhamdulillah. I think it's also used in Ayurveda, but I don't remember the Ayurveda name for it off the top of my head. I actually think it's Rasant or something. But cathartics are really important if you already have some constipation or low gut motility issues. If you already have a kind of sluggish colon, then cathartics in this cold, dry season where constipation is going to be a little bit more aggravated, this would be a reason why you'd want to include something like that. The next category of prunes are a laxative, yes, alhamdulillah. But I'm only talking about the herbs, not as much the food, mashallah. Just the herbs, alhamdulillah. Um, Another kind of a herbal action are tonics. Tonic herbs are herbs that are just going to be overall kind of strengthening and supportive to your system or to specific systems. So they are typically going to have, just loads and loads and loads of nutrition and just do other kinds of amazing things synergistically to help kind of fortify and strengthen us. Um, so things like nettle, moringa, garden cress, or hebba hamra, oat straw, and alfalfa. These are all nutrient-rich herbs that are also very tonic to the system. Um, the next category are nervines. Nervines are herbs that work on your nervous system. So your brain health, your brain function, but also your emotions, also your mood. And you'll find that the kinds of herbs that have these properties, a lot of them are flowers like rose, chamomile, linden, saffron, just a pinch of saffron. And then some leaves that have a good kind of toning effect on the nervous system, nervines, are things like gotu-kola or brahmi or ginkgo or bacopa. Um, and nervines, they can be kind of relaxing or they can be stimulating. But the ones that I've listed here are primarily relaxing and will help with focus because as a part of the season, we deal with issues of brain fog, perhaps because of that coldness and dryness that shows up in autumn. The next category of herbal actions to consider are demulcent herbs. Okay, demulcent herbs are herbs that, through their through the kind of sugar and fiber that is within them, they make a kind of a gel consistency, right? So if you like think about cutting open an aloe leaf and that very thin gel or that slimy texture that is it's called mucilage, but it acts as a demulcent, as it means it softens and soothes the tissues and our skin, right? So marshmallow is one. And some of you know that I highly recommend marshmallow tea regularly if you have issues with dry skin. So marshmallow is really, really soothing and helps relieve and hydrate your skin from the inside out. Sidr is very soothing to the lungs. Alhamdulillah. Onion is considered a demulcent, and within our community space, I have a recipe for a cough syrup that is very soothing, that helps quiet the cough. Pretty much within that night, if you make it, and either you're taking it or you're giving it to your children, it's safe for kids. But onion syrup, onions are very soothing to your lungs and your lung tissue. Irish sea moss is another one, and again the jujube. The jujube is more kind of soothing to your gut and your colon. I could have written licorice root here. I could have included slippery elm as other examples, but I just, mentioned a few of these here. So inshallah, when you are thinking about, this dryness as maybe something that's aggravating for you, you can look to demulcent herbs to help with that. And then the last category of herbal actions are stimulants. So because we deal with things like fatigue, or we deal with internal stagnation. Things aren't moving and flowing and being as fluid as they were maybe in an earlier season. We want to kind of kickstart that fire within our body and get things energized and moving. And so we look to herbs like cinnamon or ginger, which helps disperse and kind of get our blood moving. And of course, cayenne, capsaicin is a very, very good and very effective stimulant and blood mover. It's also very good for first aid, which doesn't seem like it would be, but you can actually apply cayenne powder to any kind of cuts, or if you have bleeding, it will immediately kind of stimulate the healing to get your cells to start knitting together, inshallah, and patching patching up the whole the cut, inshallah. Um, so these are some of the primary actions that I typically will look at for something to fortify my system or other people's systems in autumn. And it's generally going to be built around cathartics, nervines, demulcents, and stimulants. And if there's a need for it, I will add in alternative herbs. So if in addition to those four categories, someone wanted to, address their their immune issues, their immune health, and they wanted to boost their immunity, then I would include something like black seed or echinacea. If it was something where we're dealing with allergies, I would use a different kind of alternative that helps to calm and soothe and quiet the overactive immune response. So alternatives can work in both ways. They're very blood cleansing in general. They can also stimulate your immune system, or they can help calm it down when it's a little bit overreactive in allergies. And I think I saw a comment or a question. Yes. Um, Cocoa, is that a laxative too? Yes, cacao or cocoa can be, um, because of its stimulant action, it can be a little bit of a cathartic. Yes, it can make you go. Alhamdulillah. I could have mentioned green tea here also, but I just left it off. It can be a little bit drying, so you would want to pair something like green tea with maybe marshmallow, or maybe, some other kind of a soothing herb because of the drying property of green tea, alhamdulillah. So these are just some of the ways that you can start to think about how to work with herbs, and the herbs that you know that you can easily get access to. And um, what I want you to be able to do is understand that if you know what these herbs are capable of, and are capable of more than one of these actions, um, you can navigate your herbal journey with a lot more flexibility and inshallah more success and more effectiveness, right? So that if we just talked about use black seed, use this herb, use that herb, um, you won't know what to do if I've given you a list of herbs and those herbs don't seem to be working, right? As I want you to be able to have that flexibility to navigate it with a little bit more success personal to your situation, alhamdulillah. So among these three principles, um, from self-ruqya to looking at diet, so we talked about ruqya and self-ruqya, diet, and the herbs, right? These are the things that are going to be kind of the key tools in your wellness toolbox, right? So let's look at how to put all this together practically, inshallah. So let's see, what would a seasonal regimen for autumn kind of entail? And I know I've just given you so much information and we can kind of slow things down just for a moment. I don't want you to worry too much about all the different herbs and the herbal actions that I introduced to you, but I want you to think about it kind of from that standpoint of looking at self-ruqya and diet and herbs, and also the role of our level of activity and the quality of it, the level and quality of rest that we get, the social connections, our spiritual health. Like, let's put all of that together now into a kind of a healing routine. And so here is one way that I approach it, inshallah. Okay. So this chart is a way to visualize the day, okay, from morning to night, right? Setting intentionality if we can, right? So slowing down and kind of being much more intentional, not kind of heedlessly, with ghafla, kind of just moving through the day, waking up and running and doing all of these different things, which is what we typically do. The day gets away from us, and, before we know it, now, some kind of illness or some kind of health complaint is slowing us down, right? But if we start being much more intentional upfront at the outset and more deliberate in the things that we do and how we organize our day, whether that's with our meals, our food, our lifestyle, maybe we're going to write some things down or keep track. All of these things are going to help us be much more focused on what is going to keep us well, right? So that we're not kind of, you know, caught off guard and now kind of scrambling to be healthier. We're, putting a plan in place and kind of almost attacking the season armed with our tools, our wellness tools, inshallah. Um, but writing things down is really important, and I really recommend trying to keep some kind of a record because that can really change the game for you if you're really hoping to transform your health. I have my clients keep a food journal. If we're working on hormone balancing issues, if I'm working with women on hormone balancing issues, or girls, we'll keep a period tracker because you'll be able to start to associate the different choices or habits that you've made with the outcome within that day for you. And then you can start to make certain connections. I ate this and then I felt bloated, or I ate that and then I was so exhausted, or, on this day I overslept and I scrambling and I, downed a bunch of coffee and then I was just kind of, you know, done for the rest of the day. And then 2 days later, I got sick. These kinds of things that we just kind of experience from day to day without too much connection. When we're writing them down, we're able to come back and reflect on them. But even better would be if we can reflect or create that plan ahead of time, right? So, um, looking at the morning, which inshallah, we know from from our tradition Rasul Sallallahu asked for the barakah for us in the morning. So as early to sunrise, as close to sunrise as possible, if we're able to. If we're able to start our day around the sunrise time, inshallah, we can harness that barakah, right? We can be thinking about that from the standpoint of, our adhkar, our recitation, our self-ruqyah, and thinking of that as a part of that preventative mindset. Inshallah, we can, put that into practice. And along with that, if we're starting our day nice and early, if we're able to, we can it's very amazing when you are able to take advantage of the barakah of the morning. And I'm not always able to, but when I am able to, there's a sort of clarity of focus around my priorities for the day. Like I'm able to figure out, okay, these are the things that I really need to accomplish in the day. And I am able to set out a plan to do that. And then, I find that the rest of the day kind of runs a little better. On the other hand, when my day doesn't start um, as early, uh, I don't feel that same level of barakah in the day, alhamdulillah. So, that's a part of, inshallah, what we need to be able to kind of wrestle with our own situation. Some of us have very full and very, maybe complex things on our plate that don't make it possible. But if it is at all possible, inshallah, there is barakah in the early morning and it will help you through the rest of your day because you are starting your day with some intentionality and some mindfulness. So that period of reflection and quietness allows you to kind of set yourself up more successfully, inshallah. Then you have the entire day, alhamdulillah, to go about all of the things that you need to be about, work or kids or work and kids or homeschooling or, taking care of whatever your responsibilities are that you are, needing to take care of. And if you started your morning very early, you might be able to squeeze in, if not a full-on nap, at least some kind of quiet resting time. Inshallah, the nap around the her time, if we can get it in, is very helpful. And it also helps us kind of ensure that we're catching any gaps in our sleep at the end of the day, right? So, inshallah, we're going to sleep not too long after Isha so we can get in a good 7 hours for women is what is, around the recommendation, 6 hours for men, and it's a much different number of hours. Children and kids and teens, teens need much more sleep than we do as adults, alhamdulillah. But this is kind of a way to consider what your day can kind of look like if you're able to, take advantage of all these different points. And there's actually a blog article on my website that kind of goes into this with a little bit more depth and detail, inshallah. And so here is what I want you to take away from for this for your own daily routines. Okay. We need to get ahead of the cold, dry patterns in autumn through daily practices. That inshallah become habits and perhaps routines that will, sustain us all season long, right? And the habits and routines that we're going to be implementing for autumn are going to necessarily need to change when we transition into the next season, right? When we transition into winter. So for now, though, let's look at what that can mean for us in autumn. So autumn is cool, so we want to be thinking about things that are going to be considered a warming practice, So that movement, we talked about the importance of movement and activity, moderate exercise. It can be aerobic, it doesn't have to be aerobic. I say moderate aerobic exercise if you're able to. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on your level of health. It also depends on kind of where you are in your cycle as a woman. There are certain times that are going to be a little bit more conducive to an aerobic workout versus something that's a little bit more mild, like walking. But also, a positive mindset is actually warming to the body. Um, and the effect of our thoughts on our immunity. There's a, there's a whole field of study called psychoneuroimmunology that looks at the role of what are called peptides on our immune system, so that when we have a positive mindset, we produce what are called positive peptides, positive neural peptides, and our immune cells, they have receptors for these peptides, positive or negative. If an immune cell is attached to a positive peptide, this is going to boost our immune system. If we have a negative mindset, we're dealing with depression or some kind of emotional upset and negative, thoughts and feelings, those negative peptides that we create, they're going to be attached to our immune cells, and they have a suppressive effect on our immune system. So, I don't just say have a positive mindset just because it's good for you, which it absolutely is. But from an immune standpoint, it is very important. From an chronic inflammation standpoint, it is very, very important that we are doing things that, support our immune system in the best way. So that warming practice, that positive mindset is a part of that. And then, warming foods and cooking techniques. So what are considered some warming foods? For starters, dried fruits or cooked fruits. Okay. So cooking your apples with spicy foods, spicy tastes like cinnamon and ginger. This is very warming, right? Cooking your garlic and onions, um, having dishes with meat cooked in sauce. These are going to be warming foods and some warming cooking practices. Cooking your vegetables, whatever they are, especially your leafy greens, is very warming. Um, and in general, when you think about the kinds of things, especially in maybe more of the global north that we typically would associate with fall, it's having casseroles and baked dishes and, chili and, but curries and stews, all of these kinds of things where they're, cooked with meat and sauce and vegetables. They may or may not have grains in them. All of that is very warming, alhamdulillah. Um, and then if we look at what would be considered more of a hydrating or moistening practice, it would be things like swimming as a kind of exercise, if that makes, sense for you. And depending on where you are, maybe swimming is an exercise that you can take on. And it is considered more of a part of a hydrating practice. And then we would want to incorporate more of those hydrating fruits and vegetables, right? So our citruses, juicy pineapples if they're in season where you are, other kinds of nice juicy fruits or vegetables, cucumbers, tomatoes, that kind of thing, but also squashes. And sea vegetables, meaning things like kombu and seaweed, Irish sea moss, bladderwrack is an herb, but these are all kinds of sea vegetables that we could incorporate and can benefit from for bringing some of that hydration into our system. Cooking our vegetables, especially things like eggplant and squash and other kinds of cooked vegetables, these are typically hydrating into for our bodies. Um, and cooking with whole grains. Okay, whole grains. If you are tolerating them well, some of you might need them in smaller doses than others. Um, and if you're able to tolerate a little bit of dairy, especially very high quality dairy, this is also a way to bring some of that moistening and hydrating pattern into your body through your diet, inshallah. And in general, cooking in sauce, cooking those stews and hearty soups, these are going to be cooking techniques more associated with that hydrating kind of a practice, right? So if you were, just going to have like a dried sandwich, a dried kebab wrap or something like this, that's going to be much more drying to your system, even if it's incredibly delicious. It's going to maybe have a little bit more of a drying effect, especially for somebody who's a little bit more susceptible to that drying pattern and sensitive to it. So you kind of want to think about how can I bring in um, more of a balancing type of a food or a meal into my diet, inshallah. And when I talk about diet, I'm not saying that you need to be on keto or you need to be vegan or you need to be on the FODMAP diet or whatever this or that diet that has a name. It's more about you focusing on um, a nice, rich mix of different kinds of foods and using a variety of different ways to prepare them in order to help balance out what you within your body need that balancing support for, inshallah. And then finally, as a part of looking at our wellness in autumn, I have included this recipe for an autumn tea, which it brings together some of those different herbal actions, right? So the stimulating property of ginger, the stimulating and warming property of cinnamon, and cinnamon is also a little bit of an alternative. It's also a little bit of a antibacterial and antimicrobial. The demulcent property of marshmallow root and the nervine and demulcent properties of chamomile. So taken together, inshallah, as a tea, and you could enjoy this every day, no problem. This would be one of the ways that you can build your own kind of a healing practice for autumn. And just so you can see, I have just like I'm not sure if you can, if how viewable it is for you, but we've got some cinnamon, marshmallow root, ginger, and the chamomile here. And I would combine this all together and have it as my tea, inshallah. Probably in the morning, and I would have it at night. And the measurements given here is a little bit of a higher concentration, a little bit of a stronger preparation than you might, usually associate with preparing your tea. And that's okay. It's still very, very safe dose, alhamdulillah. So there's no issues there, Allahu Akbar. So continuing through um, those healing and restorative habits that you may have intentionally kind of done in summer, right? Like in summer, we know to focus on our hydration. We know to focus on, those kinds of fruits and vegetables and things that are going to be helping offset some of that heat and some of that dryness. So the dryness of summer still continues into autumn. So we want to keep some of those practices up, right? So at least those hydrating practices in eating those hydrating fruits and vegetables. But as we shift into the coolness of autumn, right, then we can turn to more of those warming techniques in preparing our foods. And then, just as a quick mention for our sisters that are on the call, because we're in the autumn season environmentally, you also want to be thinking about this from your cycle phases, right? So the seasonality of your cycle, right? Winter, spring, summer, autumn, right? And that corresponds to the different phases of your cycle. If you're perimenopausal, menopausal, or in your luteal phase, then you might need to kind of double or triple your efforts to keep things flowing and fluid and in balance, inshallah, because our hormones run according to their own rhythms, influenced by our habits, that we've talked about just earlier. So, you know, the luteal phase is often associated with autumn. So we're in autumn, and if you're in your luteal phase or if you're perimenopausal or menopausal, then those patterns of dryness and coldness might require even more of your attention, inshallah. And actually, just earlier, I shared with a perimenopausal client that her dry physical patterns in her constitution, along with her being in autumn, right, along with her, right, being menopausal, meant that she had to prioritize um, doing more hydrating, moistening, moisturizing practices, and being much more intentionally focused on the effects of the dryness of this season, inshallah. So, these are ways that we can take kind of our intuitions about our experiences within the different seasons and kind of pair that with, some of the knowledge and information that you already have, and inshallah, some of the things that you have, discovered, hopefully today, to help, fortify your wellness all season long, inshallah. And so I'll close with this hadith, which I take as encouragement that prioritizing our health draws us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if we set that intention, right? So in this hadith, Rasulullah sallam, he says, a strong believer is better and is more beloved to Allah than a weak believer, and there is good in everyone, right? And so, it's really just about setting that intention to be more focused on serving yourself well so that you can, practice these habits of prevention and benefit from, what Allah makes freely available or easily available to us in medicinal foods, in these different kinds of herbs, inshallah, and that by pursuing that as a part of, that medicine that we seek, and that prevention that we seek, that we gain that benefit and begin to strengthen ourselves, inshallah. So take your recipe and prepare your blends. This is just a basic recipe, as I mentioned. So like for me, being postmenopausal, I would definitely add hormone balancing herbs to this. Same if I were perimenopausal. Um, I probably would bring in oat straw, which is a tonic herb, but it also has a mild effect on our reproductive health, or something stronger like ashoka or shatavari, or it could be something or red raspberry leaf. These are just a few different hormone or reproductive supporting herbs that you can consider if that's something that you also would need to be looking to bring in. So as we wrap up, I want to hear from you. Is there anything new that you learned or anything that you just, weren't aware of before? You can drop it in the chat, inshallah. Okay, let me see. So many new things. Allahu Akbar. I'm trying to see this one comment. Let me pop the chat open. Is homeopathy considered as herbal medicine? They're actually very different systems of natural healing. It's a valid system of natural healing, but it's just very different. So homeopathy is based on this principle of like cures like. So you might be given bits of something toxic or similar to maybe like if you were nauseous, you might be given a little bit of something that makes you nauseous to help your body slowly adjust to it. Um, and that approach is just a different approach than the way that herbal medicine would deal with nausea, for example. Uh, yes, how the luteal, we are creatures of hormones, right? Men and women, to be honest. And of course, for us as women, our phases are much longer, and the luteal phase is often the longest. And then when you add in the fact that depending on the season that we're in and what's happening in our environment, it's a lot, but it also creates enormous opportunity, empowering us to just do what is available and accessible to us. So it's not, inshallah, hopefully going to be something that is so overwhelming, but that just brings some more mindfulness and intentionality into how you think about your health and deal with your health. Allahu Akbar. Okay, I think if I've missed a question, I apologize, but my computer is not showing me all of your comments. I see a comment that asks, how often do you give lectures like this? Inshallah, the next one will be in 2 weeks. We'll be focusing on detoxing smartly to minimize the side effects and things when people detox wrong, and there are lots of ways to detox wrong. And it will include some things around inflammation and why a detox is a great way to kind of reset your health, especially if you have any kind of chronic health issues or inflammatory illnesses. And then in November, I think 2 weeks after the next one. So in November, we will do a cold flu season, right? So we'll have a whole hour devoted to cold flu season, inshallah. 2 teaspoons of each four herbs in 1 cup. That's 8 teaspoons. That's correct. Yep. So I think most of the time you'll hear kind of conventionally, one teaspoon, maybe 1 tablespoon of herbs to 1 cup of water, and that's fine if you're looking for like taste and very, 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 very mild effect. But if you want to really get the healing benefits out of the herbs, inshallah, 8 teaspoons will help you do that better, more effectively. And that's often the issue for people when they are trying to do herbs by themselves or on their own and experimenting. There's usually three things that go wrong. They don't make it strong enough, they don't take it frequently enough, or they don't have, really good quality herbs, good quality products. To that. Yes, no, no, no. No ground herbs. I want you to, as much as you can. If you can't help it, but you only have ground herbs available, it's fine. The issue with ground herbs is once you take a plant, I'm turning to the side because let me just show you a quick example. I don't know if you can see this. This is licorice root. Let me take it out. This is licorice root that I just kind of like broke down into smaller pieces. Okay. And this is the powder. Once you powder an herb, you've broken it down, you've broken the cell walls down, the the medicinal properties start to degrade, right? So unless the powders are like kept cold, maybe in a freezer or something like this, then you are going to have a loss in the potency of the herb. Powders are fine, they are still effective, but the herbs are most effective when you work with them as close to their whole form as possible. Tea bags are out of the question. I mean, if you have like you can get like if you can get high quality paper tea bags or like the cotton muslin bags, but most of the tea bags have plastics and it's like you're poisoning yourself from the plastic in the tea bag while trying to get the benefit of the herbs. So, if you just make your tea and then just with a strainer you strain it. When I have lots of different kinds of strainer gadgets, this is one that I love for that's like easy for one serving. This can hold like 2, maybe 3 tablespoons of herbs. Um, you can find these on like Noon or Amazon or something like that. Uh, I don't do too much with tea bags, alhamdulillah. Yeah, so, inshallah, you will try your blends. I would love to hear how it goes for you. And if you have questions at all about anything else, I don't mind sticking around for a little bit longer. If you are going to buy your herbs, please try to buy them from, it's my little plug for the small shop herbalist, not my shop because I don't sell single herbs. I only sell my formulas. But you can avoid iHerb and Amazon and Noon, inshallah, because there's plenty of just smaller herb shops that will benefit from you shopping with them. and you have, I think, a little bit more, a little bit more connection to your herbs when you shop with the smaller shops. Of course, there's nothing wrong with the larger shops, but you know, the importing, depending on where you are, and sometimes things can go a little bit wrong. So try to get your herbs from a smaller local shop. So if you want any more support or need more guidance, of course, I'm available to help you do that. Go farther on your path to healing yourself and your family, inshallah ta'ala. Any store that do I recommend any store in Dubai, Sharjah, or Ajman? So in Dubai, I do recommend Lukmani Herbs. If you can go to them in person, that'll be great because you can like really see the quality. In Sharjah, you can go to the Suq al Bahar, which is near the Arabian Tea House, by the like Sharjah uh, Art Museum, like that area. And then in Ajman, I know there's Hashem Flour Mill, which I've heard, and I just started getting some things from there that are really good quality. So those are three off the top. Alhamdulillah. Okay. So with that, I will say Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I will switch off the recording and stick around for maybe 5 more minutes if there's any questions, inshallah.